It's finally time. Week 4 of the NFL has concluded, and now it's time for me to rank the teams. As you can see here, I have a tier list, so I'm going to do the two things that kids love these days, football and tier lists. So without further ado, let's go ahead. So, we're going to begin with the Minnesota Vikings. Why? Because I like the Vikings, if you can't tell. And also, they're one of the best teams in the NFL. Currently, they stand 3-1 and have a. Currently, the Vikings are 3-1 and are on their way to becoming 4-1 next week. For this reason, there are not many 4-1 teams in the league. I'm going to have to put them in the S tier. Next on my list is the Washington Commanders. Washington is, let me get that number. Washington Commanders. Washington is 1-3 on the other side of the spectrum. Due to this number, and Washington has really never had it together, I'm gonna have to put Washington in the D tier. Tennessee Titans are next on here. Tennessee Titans are 2-2. When I think of the Tennessee Titans, I really think of like the middle of the pack teams, the teams that when you hear the word NFL, you think of Kansas City or perhaps the Chiefs, where the Chiefs are right here. But yeah, as I was saying, Tennessee Titans are going to be your middle of the pack team. They're going to be one of the middle of the pack teams, so I'm going to put them in the B tier. Next up on the list is going to be the. Next up on my list is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Bucks. If I was doing this like 3 or 4 years ago, they'd be in the D tier. But ever since they got Tom Brady, he's turned that team around for them big time. The last 3 years, they've been playoff contenders and even won a Super Bowl. For this, I think it'd be unfair. It'd be unfair to put them in the D tier because of this. However, this season they have been struggling. The Tampa Bay Bucks. I'm gonna get their record here. Currently, as the time of making this video, they are 2-1, which is a winning record, which is really good. But it does look like they're about to go out to Kansas City. So due to this, I'm gonna have to put the Bucks in the A tier. They're a really good team. They just have a tough schedule this year, and because of that, it's gonna be really hard to get in the playoffs. Next up is the 49ers. And the 49ers are actually pretty good. I give them a lot of credit. I give the 49ers a lot of credit. I respect the team a lot. I'm going to pull up their record here. San Francisco 49ers. Get their record. They're 1-2 this year, but I think that's because of a tough schedule. Granted, they lost to Denver, right? Yeah, they lost to Denver in an embarrassing fashion, and because of that, I'm gonna have to put them in the B tier. Next up is Seattle. I'm getting their record here. Seattle beat the Lions today, 48-45, in a miraculous comeback. Miraculous, I guess, maybe not comeback, but more of a clutch. Incredibly high-scoring game this afternoon between the Seahawks and the Lions. The Lions dropped to 1-3, and the Seattle Seahawks remained 2-2. Because they're 2-2 and it's Seattle, I'm gonna have to put them in the top of B tier, probably just above the Titans. Next is Pittsburgh Steelers, and I don't think they're doing too hot. Yes, this Pittsburgh Steelers, they lost to the Jets today. They lost to the Jets, and it's really bad when you lose to the Jets. Because they lost to the Jets and their 1-3 record and their inability to get things going in modern times, I'm putting them in the D category, but above Washington. Next up is Philadelphia. Philadelphia, instant S. I believe they won today. I believe Philadelphia won today. Yep, they destroyed the Jacksonville Jaguars 29-21, which means they are the only undefeated team in the league at the moment. Yeah, the Jets, they beat the Vikings, so it makes sense they go above the Vikings. The only team to do it. I think Philadelphia might be heading towards a Super Bowl, but my questions, they'll probably win again next week because they play the Cardinals next week, and the Cardinals haven't been doing too hot. So I believe the Eagles will win again and be 5-0 next week, and they'll remain to be the only undefeated team in the league. So I'm putting them at the top of S tier. The New York Jets. New York Jets. New York Jets, I mentioned this earlier, they beat Pittsburgh 24-20, and they have a 2-2 record overall. I'm going to put them in the C tier because two of their wins, they won today in a pretty rough fashion. 20-24 is a really close game. And then they had that miracle win versus the Browns earlier in the year, which shouldn't have happened. So really they should be 1-3 right now, but they are 2-2. So because of their ranking, I'm gonna put them in the C tier. Next is the New York Giants. I'm also gonna put the New York Giants in the C tier, slightly above the Jets, because I believe the Giants are 2-2 too. Let me just confirm that. Oh, they're 3-1. They beat Chicago today. So Giants are 3-1 actually. So I'm gonna put them bottom of B then. I don't have a lot to say about the Giants. Yeah, it's just the Giants, I guess. I don't have a big academic thought to give about the Giants. It's just the Giants. They show up. Let me see who they play next week. They play the Packers next week, and the Packers have been looking unstoppable recently. Well, granted, they almost lost to New England today, but they play the Packers next week. They should lose next week, and they'll be dropped down. I'll keep them in B tier. Next up is the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints played the Vikings. The New Orleans Saints played the Vikings this morning actually, and the Saints, I believe they're 1-3 now after their loss to the Vikings. It was a heartbreaking loss if you're a Saints fan, and a crying relief if you're a Vikings fan. So they had a double doink at the end. So yeah, Saints are 1-3, but I do think they deserve a little bit of credit. I'm going to put them above the Giants because I believe if the Saints and the Giants played, the Saints would win 100 of those games. Maybe even like above San Francisco. Maybe I'll put them above Tennessee, like top of B tier. They gave the Vikings a run for the money this afternoon. I respect that out of the Saints. Now, the Patriots, I mentioned this earlier. They almost beat the Packers this afternoon. I'm getting the record pulled up here. 24-27 in OT. They're a 1-3 team, but if you could almost beat the Packers, you got something to it. But at the same time, the Packers could have just been playing like out of hand. Ever since Tom Brady left the Jets, they've had so many people in to replace him. They tried Cam Newton. Cam Newton didn't work, and then they just keep pulling in new guys from Alabama and all these university. And Bill Belichick can't seem to coach them up right. Just because of that, I'm putting them in the C tier. They win games every once in a while, but they win their games every once in a while, but it's just iffy if you're a Patriots fan right now, to say it blandly. Next on my list, Miami Dolphins. I believe the Miami Dolphins are 3-1. I'm gonna be putting them in S tier. I know it's a hot take, but I'm putting the Miami Dolphins in S tier because they beat Buffalo. Any team that beats Buffalo is an immediate S tier. Yeah, I think they would have won last weekend too if Tua didn't get his head hurt. Once Tua gets back, Miami's gonna be a powerhouse in their division. Next up on my list is the Las Vegas Raiders. They won today. They beat the Broncos. So because I don't think the Raiders' record reflects what kind of a team they are. The Raiders' record are 1-3, and they had their first win today. They pulled Devontae Adams off the Packers during the offseason, and they beat the Broncos, and the Broncos beat San Francisco, and I haven't ranked the Broncos yet, so I'm going to put them in the B tier. I don't think their record accurately represents what team the Raiders are. Next up is the Los Angeles Chargers, the Rams. The Rams play the 49ers tonight and are 2-1. I believe, I don't think, bit of a hot take here, but I don't think the Rams are as good as the people say they are. I think they're a good team, but they're not like S tier. I'll put them in the A. I'll put them in A, maybe slightly above Tampa Bay. The next one is the Chargers. Again, it's like the Titans with this one. They don't stick out as being incredibly bad. They don't stick out as being incredibly good. So just right in the middle by the Titans. It'll be a good spot for them. Kansas City. I could talk an hour about Kansas City. They represent Midwestern football very well. And whenever my Vikings don't make the playoffs, I always root for Kansas City or Buffalo. There's no doubt they're going to the Super Bowl this year, and they're just a great team, just about unstoppable. The Jacks, let me get the Jacks. I think they're 2-2. Yep, 2-2. They lost the Eagles today, and they play the Texans next week. I'm gonna put the Jacks at the top of D tier, but just historically over the last 2 years, the Jacksonville Jaguars have gotten 5 wins in 36 games. They're just not a very statistically good team. So unless they can impress me by pulling one off Philly or one of the big guys, they're still going to be in D tier. The Indianapolis Colts, I'm going to put them in C tier. Above the Jets, between the Jets and the Patriots. I'm going to get their record. Yeah, they lost to the Titans today. They're one win, 2 losses, and a draw. So Lost to the Titans today, 24-17. 1-2-1 overall. They have a losing record and have kind of been like below average for the last few years. The Houston Texans are just a D tier. I think statistically, they're the only Houston Texans. I'm right. They're the only team in the league without a win thus far. And for that, they're going to be the bottom of the D tier. Green Bay, oh, those bloody cheeseheads. Green Bay, I'm going to put them below the Vikings because the Vikings beat them earlier this year. But I do think that they're going to keep the Vikings on their feet and be fierce competition in the Vikings division. There will be key games between the Vikings and the Packers that will determine who goes to the playoffs or not. And I hope the Vikings are going to the playoffs. Other than that, they've been stomping everyone they've encountered. But they did almost lose to New England today. New England's down here in C tier, so that should not be happen. Aaron Rodgers better clean up his act before he goes to London next week. Next up is the Lions. I'm going to put Lions in the A tier. Maybe bottom of A tier. So what the Lions have been doing is they've been constructing a great offense. Their offense scored 24 points on the Vikings last week. And they were up and they were leading by 14 points in the first quarter and 10 points in the third quarter. And the reason the Lions lost last week was because their defense couldn't come up and stop the Vikings from recovering the comeback. I think they have something going with their offense this year, and I think it will take them places. Broncos, I'll put them in A tier. Yeah, I'll put them in A tier, sure. The Denver Broncos have been playing pretty well this year. They've been winning decisive games. They beat the 49ers last week. They win this week. Lost to the Raiders this week, though. I don't know where to put them then. Maybe I'll just put them top of B tier. Yeah, that works. Between the Saints and the Titans. Top of B tier. They've been pulling decisive games this week and just let ones go that they shouldn't lose. Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys are 3-1 this year, despite having their starters injured. So I'm gonna put them in the A tier, and when their starters recover, they might even be up in the S tier. Cincinnati Bengals. I know they went to the Super Bowl last year, but I just think the Bengals are washed. I think the Bengals are washed. Getting their record here, I think they're 2-2. They lost to the Steelers, beat the Dolphins, lost to the Cowboys, and beat the Jets. Okay, so they beat the Steelers and the Jets, and that's it. And I have those two in C tier, so I'm going to put them in C tier. I'm not impressed with these wins and these losses or teams that you should win, considering you were the runner-up last year as far as the Super Bowl goes. Next team, Cleveland Browns. A lot of people like to give Cleveland crap because of their logo or because of their play style. I'm here to judge their play style. I'm going to put them top of C tier. Maybe below the Bengals, but above the Patriots. They've been pulling games this year. They've been winning this year. Cleveland Browns. They lost to Atlanta today, which is terrible. You never want to lose to Atlanta. which again is why they're down here in the C tier. But they did have an impressive win earlier this year. Where is it? I'm going crazy, actually. I'm going crazy. The only team they beat is the Steelers. And I have the Steelers in the D tier, so I'm going to move Cleveland down to the D tier then. If you're losing to the Steelers and everyone else you've lost to, I don't think I'll put them up. I'll put them between. I'll put them top of D tier. They have wait, something doesn't add up here. I have their record on my other screen. 2-2, but the teams they've lost to have just been embarrassing. So I'm just going to put them in the D tier. Chicago Bears. Fetching their record. They lost to the Giants today. It always sucks when you lose to the Giants, but they have been pretty good this year. I'm going to put the Chicago Bears in the B tier as well. Of course, they lost to the Packers last week too. It was tough. They play the Vikings next week. They'll get crushed. And lost to the Bears. They beat the Texans. And they beat the 49ers. So I'm just going to put them here, right in between San Francisco and the Giants. Next up are the Panthers. The Panthers suck. I'm sorry if I offend anyone, but the Panthers just suck. They've been terrible for years now. And I don't know if there's any fixing that team. Next up is the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, I'm going to put an S tier. My favorite player, Stephon Diggs, is on the Bills. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. It's all you need to go to a Super Bowl. And they've proven that. And they've proven that last year. Field goal was what kept them out of the Super Bowl last year. Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to put them in the A tier. Ravens are pretty good. They went toe-to-toe with the Bills this afternoon and almost stole the day from them. And it was salvaged by a last-yard field goal. So they're in the A tier. Falcons are in the D tier because they suck. Falcons, it's like Falcons and the... I'm going to change the arrangement here. So it probably goes Houston, Falcons, Panthers, Washington, Jacksonville, Steelers, and then Browns. Maybe I'll put Browns in C tier because they're not quite on this terrible level, but they are pretty bad. But anyway, the Falcons haven't won in years. It's hard to believe that they were in a Super Bowl like 8 years ago, and then all their talent retired, and they were left with nothing. And finally, last but not least, we have the Arizona Cardinals. I respect Kyler Murray. I think he's a really good quarterback, and he's going to take this Cardinals team places. And because of that, I'm going to put them in the A tier, just above the Lions. So this has been my ranking of the NFL, all of the NFL football teams thus far. If you have any objections to it and you think I'm stupid, just go ahead and leave a comment. And I will reevaluate these teams as I see fit next week.